welcome everyone to this very, very special book launch. The launch of 0 to 2, Baby and You, Pediatrician's Handbook for Practical Parenting, written by the amazing Dr. Balsekar and Malvika Chaudhary, who happens to be his daughter. And of course, the book is going to be launched by the very eminent Padma Shri, Dr. R.P. Soonawala. So before I get to each person saying a few words and introducing them in more detail, I'd just like to say thank you very much, Dr. Balsekar, for having me here today. It's truly an honor to be presiding over this event, as you very kindly wrote in your invite. It's really an honor. And Dr. Firoz Soonawala, my gynac, when I was pregnant and when I decided to start a show on parenting, I realized I felt that no one got more advice than a pregnant woman and a new parent. And I remember he said to me, he said, you know, decide very early on the 3 or 4 people that you're really going to trust and listen to, and everyone else politely smile but take it in one ear and out the other. So Dr. Firoz, I have you to blame for taking a lot of advice in one ear and out the other, but Dr. Balsekar and Dr. Archana very quickly became top of my list of most trusted. And for that reason, I find this book is really a Bible to all of us who go to them. It's our Google. I never went on Google. I never go on Google when I'm checking about anything to do with my kids, because another senior doctor, Dr. Udwadia, once told me, he said, we never became doctors by looking on Google. And for that reason, I think having a book that's from a very trusted source is truly wonderful. So thank you, doctor. And now we'd like Dr. R.P. Soonawala to please say a few words. Before that, I'm just going to do a little intro of him, and I never usually use a paper. My dad, who taught me everything I know about communication, always said, never hold a paper up and read, but your credentials are so vast that I couldn't possibly mug them up. So I'm really sorry. I'm just going to use this to introduce you. Just to say, Dr. Soonawala is a senior consultant and head of department at Brichkandi Hospital, Parsi General Hospital in Mumbai, as well as Max Healthcare Hospitals in Delhi and Wellcare in Dubai. Dr. Soonawala is Professor Emeritus at GS Medical College and Wadia Maternity Hospital, founder president of the Indian Society of Prenatal Diagnosis and Therapy, honorary medical director of Family Planning Association of India, member of WHO, expert panel on female sterilization, and a Padma Shri. So on that note, thank you, Dr. Soonawala, for being here, and we'd love you to say a few words.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Mahesh and his daughter for bringing out a book. In life, to educate is something very essential. You may know a lot, but if you don't part with it, what's the purpose? The more you teach people, the more you learn and the more you benefit. I always keep fighting, literally fighting, with the hospital administrations wherever I am, because when it comes to intensive care for a 70-year-old, they'll give all the money, all the profit. The government gives all the exemptions to tax. But when it comes to a newborn baby whose whole life is in front of us, they just don't realize that the maximum should be given for that purpose. I always debate in my mind, Mahesh, whether you are more responsible to keep our human, say, future more healthy, or it is the obstetrician who does it. Because we have to also, as a team, work upon the human life expectancy, which used to be 65, 70. If one lived to 75, was considered as a good old age about 50, 70 years ago. Now the life expectancy is 85 to 90. So whatever more years are given by God to us, we should be healthy and happy. And happiness is one thing which should be created in you. So right from the time a child is born, if the child is given sort of a confidence and happy feeling, I'm sure the child will go through all his life with a happy feeling. So Mahesh will hold the debate whether you are more important or an obstetrician is more important to make sure the individual has a very happy and a healthy life. I first of all do also thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here. And it is, believe me, a wonderful profession, an obstetrician producing a baby and a pediatrician looking after the baby, and they become your lifelong friends. It's not a doctor and a patient relationship. Usually it is a lifelong friendship that we enjoy, we really enjoy. And trust that is put in our hands for their own most precious possession, a child, is something which is more rewarding than any financial benefit out of this profession. So I thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to be here and wish you maximum success in the future to look after the babies.
Thank you, Poonawalla. That was lovely. Before we actually ask you to launch the book, we'd like Dr. Balsekar also to say a few words. I have to take out the paper again because he also has a long list of credentials. So Dr. Mahesh Balsekar is a consultant pediatrician at the Breach Candy Hospital and Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital, Mumbai. As a practicing pediatrician with 30 years of experience, the focus of Dr. Balsekar's practice has been on care of newborns, health supervision of children and preventative care. He's an invited speaker at many conferences and authored chapters in several medical textbooks. Also, Dr. Balsekar does a lot for his trust and his foundation, and I think that's something that a lot of us don't know. As Dr. Poonawalla said, they become lifelong friends, but there are certain secrets that someone as humble and quiet as Dr. Balsekar doesn't reveal. So only events like this bring all that to the fore as well. So we'd love to hear what you have to say, Doctor, about the book and about your foundation.
A very warm welcome to everybody. I've been in practice now for almost 30 years. And for the last almost 10 or 15 years, I've been thinking of writing a book. And it's taken about 3 years of effort to finally reach this stage today. I think this is a very nice gathering of friends, colleagues and families, and I welcome all of you. I think parenting is one of the most exciting journeys for young couples and young parents. And the first 2 years are the most dramatic. I think from a child who is only about 3 kilos to grow to about 11 or 12 kilos, and to grow from 50 centimeters to almost 85, 90 centimeters. But the most dramatic change takes place in brain development. And almost 90% of the growth of brain takes place in the first 2 years of life. And while parents are terribly excited about what happens in the first 2 years, there's always an element of anxiety. That is my child doing well? Am I doing well as a parent? Am I living up to the expectations of my husband or my in-laws or my parents? And is everything going well for the child? So this excitement is always tinged with a little bit of anxiety that the child is doing well. And parents always seek support and reassurance from different sources to make sure that they're doing the best for their child. If you see the way family life has changed over the last 30 years of practice, it's undergone many changes. In the earlier years of practice, we used to find young couples, usually the husband would not be visiting, but they would come with the in-laws or the grandmothers. They would learn about breastfeeding, weaning and other advice from sisters and sisters-in-law who lived together in a joint family. They didn't have much access to information, so they sought guidance from their in-laws and parents, and they took advice from doctors, and the children were brought up. This was fairly simple and things went quite smoothly. But if you look after the advent of the information age, things have changed very dramatically. Right now you find that couples are often living separately and independently, and they're powered with information. And you find young mothers who are yet to become pregnant have often got strong views on everything, on pregnancy, on childbearing and a host of things. So you find that the internet is a great source, the book is a great source of knowledge. You have WhatsApp chats where one mother writes something and 100 mothers come to know what has happened. And this can be quite dangerous because as a pediatrician, if you do something good, yes, 100 mothers come to know. But if I'm rude or impatient in a bad mood at some point, 100 mothers come to know. So information travels very, very quickly these days. So it's not lack of knowledge now, but it's too much information which is the problem. So when parents are now bringing up their children, what you find is that they don't trust their parents or in-laws anymore. And grandparents are in fact intimidated to even give advice because whatever advice a grandparent gives is quickly trashed by Dr. Google. So when this happens, you find that the parents come with fixed views and a lot of anxiety, in fact, because they really don't know and how to sift through all this different information. So now the style of practice has also changed. In the earlier years, it was called paternalistic medicine, that the patient comes to you, the doctor has all the knowledge and experience, you give some information, the parents listen to you or the patient listens to you, and they go back and everything is smooth. Then came the information stage, that all of us started giving handouts and things. So parents got information, they read it and they followed this. But now when mothers and parents come to us, they are equally informed. So this stage of parenting or medical practice is called the interpretive stage of practice. This means that we don't need to give information for parents anymore because they have access to all the information in the world. But we have to help them interpret information in an appropriate manner so that they can do what is best for their baby. Early in my practice, I started giving handouts to parents. And these handouts, the first handout I gave was on care of the newborn. This was how to look after the eyes, how to look after the umbilical cord, and how to look after the bottoms, and when to clip the nails, and what's the room temperature, whether pets should be allowed. And this was a lot of 6 sheets that I used to give. This I've been giving for almost 25 years. And this became extremely popular, and it was quite cute to find that mothers would be underlining it. The mothers-in-law and grandparents would be reading it. It would be Xeroxed, it would be circulated. And over a period of time, a large number of parents told me that why don't you convert this into a book. Over a period of time, these handouts grew in number. And for every stage in a child's development, I had some handout. There's something on weaning, something on newborn care, something on disciplining, something on toilet training, temper tantrums, sleep disorders, fevers. And then one developed a sort of a structured program on how to look after children. Now, if you look at pediatric practice, for example, almost a third of our practice is well child care. And while sick children come, you put an acute band-aid on what the illness is. The real crux and beauty of pediatrics is really the well child care. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics wrote a book called Health Supervision of Children on how to supervise the health of a child in the first 2 years and up to 12 years. And they had a very structured program. So I've been following this for the last 15 years, and more recently on the internet they have a program called Bright Start. Now this is a structured program on how to bring up children in a very structured manner. So when a parent brings the child to you at say 2 months or 6 months, it's not that you take the height, weight, give the immunization, then pack off the parents. You have to discuss nutrition, you have to discuss immunization, you have to discuss disciplining, you have to discuss sleep disorders and all kinds of behavior issues which may come up. So what I have tried to do in this book is to have a structured format so that parents can go through the first 2 crucial years of life in an effortless manner. I have tried to write it in a way that all questions which parents have been asking over the last so many years are included in this book. I have written it in a way that all questions parents should be asking but have not asked is included in the book. There's lots of information which pediatricians and doctors give to parents which is also included in the book. And a lot of information which doctors should be communicating with the parents but don't have the time for is also included in the book. So this book is really meant to empower parents. What I want is that the parents should be seeking out the best from the doctor, ask questions and see that their child gets the best. Now the format of the book is meant for the busy mother. Now mothers don't have the time to read books. That is something which is very clear. They are extremely busy and they don't have the time to wade through books and books. So over a period of time, I've learned from parents that the information that is given to them has to be brief, to the point and effective so that they know exactly what to do. So what I've tried to do in this book is that each visit which parents go through, whether it's at 2 weeks and 2 months and 4 to 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 15 months and 18 to 24 months, I've written it as see, ask and do. That what should the parent see in a child at each stage in the child's life? What are the things the parent should ask the doctor or try to satisfy? And what are the things you should do? So this format is meant to be a practical approach to parenting, what to see, what to ask and what to do. At each stage in the development, I've written about what discussions pediatricians normally have with parents, about immunizations, about nutrition, about accident prevention, about behavior issues, about parenting issues and all these. Now all these topics are covered and there is a cross reference so that each of this is covered in a separate chapter. So when you want to read more about immunization, more about nutrition, more about behavior disorders, you can go to a separate section. So this is the format of the book which I have written. I've thoroughly enjoyed writing this book. It's taken almost 3 years. Malvika has been my co-author. She's done most of the work. Most of the work she did, I had to edit. Whatever I wrote, Malvika had to edit. It took me 3 years, but without Malvika's constant prodding, it would have probably taken 5 years more. If you find that the book is well written with good English and a smooth flow, it's all thanks to Malvika because her English and writing skills are far superior to mine. So this is how this book has come about. I hope everybody enjoys reading it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
Thank you, Dr. Balse. And now we'd love Malvika to say a few words. I think what's really interesting is this book is about parenting, but it's also achieved a huge feat of parenting, co-authoring a book with your dad. I'm sure you have some stories about that as well, which we'd love to hear. We'd love to hear about the book.
Hi everyone, I'm Malvika. I'm a new mother. I have a 7-month-old baby who's sitting right there, Rohan. When I started writing this book, I was expecting my baby. And already, even before I had the baby, there were so many anxieties, so many insecurities. Will I be a good mother? Will I be able to manage on my own? Who will I turn to? So, keeping all these anxieties and insecurities of a new mother in mind, I've written this book from a mother's perspective. Also, in today's time, we all live in nuclear families, a lot of us. Like, for example, I, in the last 2 years, have moved from Bangalore to Bombay to Delhi, and now I'm in Gurgaon. So we don't have that one person we can really turn to ask for every little thing. So I wanted this book to be like a guide to new mothers. And also from a mother's perspective, I focused a lot on the parenting and emotional issues which are so important to a parent. Having written and researched this book, I feel very empowered now to look after my baby, and I'm actually really enjoying the journey without worrying about all these nitty-gritties that am I doing this right, is it medically right and everything. So I hope that every new mother who reads this book feels equally empowered to raise her baby and really enjoys the journey of parenting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malvika. And now we're going to ask Dr. R.P. Sunawala to please launch the book. So the book is officially launched, and it's my job to say, please everyone pick up a copy before you leave. But also this is not the end of the launch. What we're going to do now is have a very informal little panel discussion with the 4 of us, and then we're actually going to throw it open to the audience. So all of you can say a few words. And we would also like to invite Dr. Cyrus Contractor to say a few words. So very informal discussion. I actually, I have a TV show, the Sharma show, which is a platform to discuss parenting issues. And much like Malvika, I started it because I found that as a new mom, there was just so much information, I didn't know what to do. But at the same time, I used to get really upset when people over worried us. You know, I remember when I was pregnant, I'd have people say, oh my God, have you got your changing station ready? Have you got your this organized, that organized? And I thought, oh my God, you know, it doesn't have to be that frightening if you have the right people to guide you. So on that note, Dr. Balsekar, you've mentioned to us what prompted you to put this book together, the handouts and all that. How do you actually balance that in terms of your time, because you're so busy?
You know, many years ago, there was an article which talked about Scandinavia, and the government said that the children are the property of the state. And every parent wants to do the best for the child, but the state should create an environment where the parents are able to do it. So they created laws where paternity leave was granted, maternity leave was extended, flexi hours were implemented. So I think parents would always want to do the best and put in their best, but parents need to be empowered. And I've always been a little dissatisfied with medical practice because somehow the priority goes to acute care. And obviously an acutely ill child needs the attention. But you're so busy putting band-aids on acute care that As pediatricians, actually, we are in a unique position that we are part of so many families, and it's a privilege to get to know so many people and so many families. But yet, we don't have enough time to go into the depths of what we should do. We really don't have the time to bring up so many issues that are so important and so much that we would like to say. And that is why I thought ultimately that a book is the best way to do it. That if parents have the information and see what we want to say and read at home at their convenience, then I think our consultation life would be far more easy and much more effective.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Soonawalla, you've been practicing for 60 years and Dr. Balsekar has been practicing for 30. So you are literally double his, I won't say age, but his experience. So is there anything you'd like to say about Dr. Balsekar that's unique and special?
As a doctor, you have to be 24 hours of the day available, because night a call may come, day a call may come. So one has to be on telephone and absolutely ready to little explain, may not go into details, and call the patient in the morning, which I think Mahesh is one of the strong qualities. And the other good quality of Mahesh is a doctor should have a team. In the sense, you go on a holiday, you have your own personal entertainment to go to. So that I find Dr. Mahesh and Cyrus really work well. When one is out, we are not frightened. Now what shall we do? So as a good team, we have the full confidence. As an obstetrician, you want to bring out the baby in the best of health. And it is very well understood now that people have to take that responsibility and make sure the human race is more healthy in the future. Thank you.
My husband was clearly one of the ones who was most excited to wear the gumboots or the boots, and I think Dr. Feroz is guilty as charged as entertaining him way more than me. So but it worked so well because it made me more relaxed. You know, they were discussing the outfit and I was lying there and screaming, and I clearly remember feeling most upset because I think I actually was shouting, and Dr. Balsekar, who's honestly the mildest, most sweet gentleman ever, was standing there, and I have this vivid memory of going in, screaming and feeling so bad that Dr. Balsekar was witnessing that. I also have a funny anecdote which I don't know if Dr. Soonawalla will remember, and I'm not sure I should be sharing it in public, but it felt apt. But so after our first son was born, and you know, this is something that I say on my show all the time. I say, I'm no expert, I'm just learning. So I leave experts speak to experts. And I believe each to their own. So especially when it comes to weight after baby and all, it's each to their own. Whatever somebody is comfortable with is right for them. But I remember, because there was all this thing about, oh, will you be back to yourself after and all. The minute I delivered and Dr. Feroz stepped out, very sweetly, you came in to say congratulations. And I remember I was so euphoric that I just pulled down my gown and said, look, I'm back to normal. And I remember later thinking, oh my God, did I just do that? But you see, you share those intimate moments with your husband and honestly with your gynac and your pediatrician and the father of your gynac, apparently. So I must say, it's a really, really personal moment, and you do make those lifelong friends. And now, Dr. Cyrus, when Dr. Balsekar mentioned that there's so much information on the internet, which can be a pro and a con, because a lot of people perhaps don't know what information to go to. What is your view as a pediatrician on this? Do you think that there's an information overload? Would you advise your patients not to look on the net, or what's your view on this?
Yeah, well, even if I don't want them to go on the net, they will go. So that's out of question anyway. But it's a good thing that people are aware nowadays, and that people should be curious about things which are very important to them. That's their child. So it's a good thing to be curious, but at the same time, it's even better to know when to seek professional advice and when to heed it and when to respect your doctor's opinion. Patients are always free to voice their opinions and we have to listen to their concerns. But at the same time, as you said, Dr. Udwaria said, we never became doctors by being on Google. So learn where to stop and learn to trust the doctor.
And Dr. Balsekar, do you have a view on this?
You know, this information overload sometimes makes the mothers very confident, and this leads to some social problems. I'll give you two stories which I had encountered in the last few years. So once at the clinic, one elderly gentleman in his 80s came and sat, and there was no baby or nobody else. So I said, "Hey, what brings you here?" So he said, "My granddaughter-in-law is coming tomorrow, and this is how she brings up the child," and he enumerated 4 or 5 things. He said, "This is all wrong. Tomorrow she is going to come here and I'm going to come with her. So I'll ask the questions and these are the answers you're expected to give her." Similarly, I've had many mothers ring me up and say that my mother-in-law is coming tomorrow with me and she's telling me to do this, that and the other. So when I ask the question, please give all these answers. So this information overload has led to its own social problems and it's quite hilarious sometimes.
Thank you. So now, Malvika, the question that perhaps we should ask Dr. Balsekar and his wife not to listen to, do you listen to all the information that your parents give you?
Well, they don't give me too much information because now that we've written this book together, I have it all. So unless I ask something, they don't really give me too much information. But yeah, I follow whatever they say.
That's very good. I'll ask you the question afterwards when they're not in the room and see. No, so actually now we'd like to read a little bit from the book. I'm just reading this because I think it shows how simply he puts it. So somebody who asks, what is the best position to feed the baby? So the simple question is there. He's got the different diagrams and then the answer is any position in which the mother and baby are comfortable are good enough for breastfeeding. You may use different positions at different times. The cradle position for all babies. This is the most commonly used. The cross cradle position for small babies. Useful if the baby is small and needs better head support. And difficult to latch babies, useful for better head control for a baby who finds difficulty in latching. So I'm just showing you this because it just shows how simply your questions can be answered. There's also a lot that's culturally relevant. I think that's something that I've also found with my show, having lots of different people on. There are a lot of cultural and a lot of medical answers to various questions. What I found very interesting, for example, when Dr. Balsekar and Malvika talk about toilet training, they have the Indian method of toilet training and the Western method of toilet training, which I think is really, really amazing because the reality is if you are one of those moms who Googles, you might be reading an article written by someone in Poland. You know, it may not necessarily apply to your situation. So I think things like this are very, very useful. There's also a wonderful section at the end of the book which actually goes down the whole eternal debate of myths and superstitions, where they actually list out some of the traditional responses to certain questions and the medical ones. And it's not about what is right and what is wrong. I think it's about choosing what works for you. So for example, something like if the baby cries excessively due to gas, local application of hing on the tummy helps to reduce gas and colic. But the medical explanation is given side by side and says why babies cry in the initial months is not well understood. Refer to the section on infant colic on page 213 for more information. Many families have the tradition of applying hing on the tummy to relieve discomfort. This practice is harmless, but the benefit of this practice is questionable. I think things like this are really useful because if you do want to say to your mother-in-law, I don't agree, it's possible to smile and hand them the book and say, now here are both the explanations, you choose. So I think for all those reasons, it's really well put together. So I think that's fantastic. So any questions? I know you all have questions, yeah.
My one question would be is for someone looking to read the book, how did you decide what was more of your personal experience versus actually using research? Because you talked about the American pediatrics, how to bring up children. So how did you synthesize, or what research did you use versus your own sort of personal experience?
I think that's a very good question. And the structure of the book is modeled along the Bright Start, which is recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. But the context is totally Indianized. You know, for example, how do you discipline a child? Are you going to time out? How are you going to toilet train a child? How are you going to put a baby to sleep? At what age you wean? And there are so many things which have a cultural context, that the structure is westernized because it's very well laid out, but the content is totally culturally acceptable. So the mandate for the book was it should be short, it should be very brief and effective, it should be structured, but it has to be acceptable to the Indian context. So I think this is a very important part of the book.
Any other questions?
Dr. Balsiga, will you talk about your foundation, what it involves?
That's my mom. I thought she was going to complain about me and how I don't listen to her.
Almost 15 years ago, I received a letter from a patient of mine, and the letter said that every Diwali we exchange gifts, and this year instead of giving you a gift, this amount is going to my favorite charity. And about a month later, I got a letter from that favorite charity saying that on behalf of you, so and so has paid a certain amount of money. And I thought this was a wonderful idea. Instead of all of us recycling Diwali gifts and sending gifts to each other, I thought this was a wonderful gesture. So almost about 15 years ago, I started a trust called Child Care Trust. And I put up a notice in my clinic saying that instead of gifts, we really don't deserve all the gifts and goodwill from parents and patients. I would much rather that you give it to this particular trust. And I didn't really publicize it, or I didn't go after it, which was, I think, lack of time and maybe effort. But this trust grew, and I got quite a bit of money, and I used to give money to all kinds of places for major health issues in poor children. But last year we decided to scale it up, and I've started this trust and foundation called Healing Touch. The mandate of this trust is to get large amounts of funds and only help children with critical illnesses where there are major costs and major impacts to a child's life. For example, 3 weeks ago I had a child who was from a very poor background and needed a valvuloplasty for a congenital heart disease. So Dr. Bharat Dalvi is a friend of mine, and he approached me knowing about my trust, and he asked me if I could bear the cost. So this child was roaming about for almost 1.5 years to get just 1.5 lakh rupees to fix his heart. So when Bharat rang me up, all I had to do is write one check, which can be reduced their charges. Bharat Dalvi lowered the cost of the device, and the child was home in 48 hours. So major illness, and what a great impact. So I think the tragedy of the situation, I think it's a very sad thing to see your children suffer. But it's a greater tragedy when parents can't afford appropriate treatment. And some of us are in a situation where we look after largely upper income parents who don't have these dilemmas. But all of us are exposed to families where critical illnesses go undiagnosed, untreated, and lives are lost. To give you an example, the under 5 mortality, that means per 1,000 children, is 50 in India, and it's only 7 in Japan. So it's almost a 10-fold increase, which means that 90% of the deaths are essentially preventable. So I think there has to be a community awareness that for relatively small amounts of money, a lot of lives are lost. So this is an effort, and this year this is going to be my project, and I hope all of you can be a part of it, and it will be very easy to help a large number of families with children who are suffering from major illnesses.
That's really wonderful to hear, Doctor. And anybody else? Any other questions?
Sheila, Dr. Sheila has been my gynac, and Dr. Mahesh has been my child's pediatrician. I have an 11-year-old boy, but if it wasn't for Mahesh, I would have been totally lost. So many questions, first time mother, so many anxieties, so many expectations of people to fulfill. It was only Mahesh who gave me the confidence of bringing up Vihan, who's my son, now 11. So I really, really, really am indebted to him and to Sheila. And of course, Malvika is also family. I do wish them all the very, very best. And thank you so much. Thank you, Mahesh. Doctor, as a first-time mother and one of those psychos who messages you for everything that I need, I wanted to know if there's a usual age when a child reaches that a mother just kind of calms down and stops sending you psychotic messages in the middle of the night.
You know, there are very interesting articles which talk about just like there is growth and development of a child, there is growth and development of a parent. And I should say there is growth and development of a pediatrician also. So parents also grow and develop gradually. In fact, after Malvika has delivered a baby, my attitude towards my grandchild is so different that I wish I had brought them up the way I look at my grandchild now. And I wish all parents would look at their children the way the grandparents look, in a more relaxed, easy and confident manner. But I think parents go through this evolution and things settle down and you'll enjoy the baby.
Just wanted to ask, since you've been practicing for 30 years, is that have you seen more of a sort of neuroses or obsession develop in the last few years of mothers because of the internet and the information? For mothers a little more relaxed, maybe 15 years ago, when they didn't have this kind of access to information?
This is almost a philosophical question. I think there's a lot of things going on and I'd like Dr. Sunawala's help to answer this question. But yes, I think this is the era of insecurity. There is financial insecurity despite having enough. There is relationship insecurity. There is health insecurity. If you look at the way parenting is, like I said, earlier families would come with their grandparents, ask questions, do it, and everything seemed to be quite easy. But right now there is a hype about everything, about play schools, about schools. You worry about foreign education for kids when they are only 1 year old, about health issues. So I think this is the era where everybody is worried about everything despite having everything. So I think the way our society is progressing is, I think, responsible for this, and this is really a philosophical question. I think Dr. Sunawala would be able to throw light on this.
No, I think it is every mother's fear that hope they don't do something that will harm the baby in the future. So even eating food, they would sometimes verify, can I eat fruits of this kind or papaya or something which has got no real, say, scientific proof about. So it is a natural instinct of the mother to make sure that the baby is protected and no mistake done which would harm the baby in the future. And it is very normal, very natural. But it should not become a sort of a phobia. As long as that is in the back of your mind, it is fine. But as you don't make it into a day-to-day practice, because believe me, the mothers who are all the time anxious and full of anxiety, the baby will catch that in no time. So if you are calm, cool and secure, definitely the baby will adopt that sort of attitude in life, and it is very necessary, very necessary. So nothing goes wrong, nature is great, nature will protect the baby, and you should not become too anxious, and that anxiety will on the contrary harm the baby more.
I just feel that nowadays everybody just wants to be totally in control of their lives and totally in control of everything that happens around them. In the sense, we want to be perfectionists. We want our children to be brought up perfectly. We want our lives to be perfect. We want everything around us to be perfect when everything around us is actually totally imperfect. So let's just calm down a little bit and let's just accept imperfections in ourselves and in others around us, including our children, and allow them to grow up naturally. It doesn't matter if a child has a little more hair on his head or doesn't have enough hair on his head when he's born. Don't freak out on these small things.
It's probably sacrilegious to say this here at a book launch in a book haven, but is there a plan to come out with a digital version of this book? Because, no, honestly, because there's, as Tara pointed out, there is absence of quality, expert written content for Indian parents online. And I see this every day, so it would be amazing if there was sort of an e-book or a digital version of this online.
The e-book is launched and will be available next week.
And Dr. Balsekar is going to actively start using his Facebook page to start posting stuff. he discovered that he has it, but it's not been used yet. So it's active if you go and friend him tonight after this session. He's also on Twitter. I got a tweet. Yeah, you're on Twitter. I hope it's you because I've tweeted back. So I think on that note, thank you everyone. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Balsekar, Malvika, Dr. Sunawala, Dr. Cyrus. Thank you so much for being here. It's really been an honor for me. I don't think I've ever seen a room full of so many mums wanting to say something and, you know, bursting at the seams with glee that this book is out. So thank you very much, and please everyone get a copy and spread the word, because I think the main thing is to get this book all over the place. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much everyone for coming, especially Dr. Sunawala. I think it's a great privilege to have you here, and not because of the great academics, but I've learned so much from you about the way you practice with gentleness, kindness and compassion. Tara really exemplifies the modern day mother, totally clued in, intelligent,
and psycho, asking questions, as that's been established.
intelligent, smart, but always connected with the kids. Thank you for conducting the event so nicely, and thank you everybody.